Everyone loves Harley Quinn.
Harley Quinn the Joker. Well, I like their relationship-wise, as well as her backstory as well.
Black Widow. She's my girl.
Well, I do love Deadpool. Yeah, probably my favourite. But I mean, I love the X-Men as well. I think the X-Men are brilliant.
I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer because I love the TV series and the comics are fantastic.
You read a book and you've got the text and stuff, but with comic books, you've got all this amazing art going on, such amazing storylines most of the time that it's just like a whole other world, really.
So I think it's a really interesting and versatile medium, and as an artist I really respect a lot of the artists who work on them.
Okay, I'm Kieran, this is Miguel, and this is Frogbross Comics and Books, the South's best comic shop. Always had a shared love of comic books and storytelling through sequential art.
The whole thing of being outside of like the day-to-day kind of, it's just a different world, isn't it? It just opens you up to everything. I mean, I remember the first comic I read was a Spiderman comic, and it was just, magical, crazy, just, journeys into different dimensions and stuff like that. Stuff that as a kid you just wouldn't have thought of, and then you pick it up and stuff like that, and it's just like, wow.
I've written mainstream comic characters like X-Men, Daredevil, Batman, and more recently I've been working on creator-owned work.
I did it as an animation first. I did it as an animated short when we were in uni, and then when I graduated I started building it up, and it just sort of spiraled out of control, and it was way too big to tell in animation, unless I was Disney, which I'm not.
When we first started work on Telecast Protocol, there was originally an idea that we were going to do it almost like an illustrated storybook. So you'd have an illustration, and if you look at the artwork, you'll see, Adam's artwork really lends itself towards doing big scale illustration. It's not the sort of thing you'd normally see in sequential artwork.
I got pretty fanatical about comics when I was a teenager. It's for me it was the ideal medium. It's a combination of words and images.
And I always intended to do it as a comic, but I built it up so much I ended up giving myself like a writer's block. I had the beginning, middle and end, but didn't know how to start it. And he was going for ages. He was going,
do it as a comic, It's like, I thought you got like 7 characters. It's very much an ensemble kind of piece, and there's loads of places there where you can slot stories in, and it made sense to kind of, with a comics kind of medium, you could spend an issue per character or develop a story over a couple of issues or standalone, and it would work out fine. So comics seemed the way forward for it.
It's a medium that you have an awful lot of control over, very few limitations.
Like he's the janitor. But he wouldn't be the best janitor.
So today's going to be focusing more on where Josh and I started, and you guys can throw out where you started with comics, what we started reading, what we're reading now, what we'd recommend as good reads, and some abysmally shit reads. So when people say comics, they say Batman, Spiderman, Superman, all these kind of people, they throw out the big names. But the thing is, like, what I find when I read comics is, for example, I focus on something like this. Hands up if you, here's a question, hands up if you can tell me who that guy is. Not his name, but what's his actual name? Bucky Barnes' Cap. So I talk about it a lot because it's just so good. I mean, it's this tragic character, this character who is plausible, believable. That's what makes comics good for me, a plausibility to it.
There's different styles of writing, there's different characters, like I say, it's all evolved through different kind of eras and years. And
it depends on the creative teams as well. You can get someone who could take on a Captain America book and it could be a complete turkey. Yeah. But then you get another creative team on there that can make it fly and make it very adult. And so it really does depend, because the characters you can play around a lot with them.
He's not an American Dream. He's not that. But the thing is, he tries. And the thing is, I look up to him in such a far greater way because he tries. He's not this spar-spangling fucking moron who's like from the 40s. He's this actual guy who's just doing his best.
The X-Men, and one of the biggest things in the X-Men, one of the main themes is almost like inequality and the fact that mutants aren't respected, even though you've got all these superheroes and all these people with powers, but the X-Men as mutants, the mutant gene is looked upon like with disgust, and you've got this whole fictional universe where all these things exist, and like I was saying, like superheroes as an institution like start becoming a problem, and that's explored. You see that in Batman a lot as well. Like this man has decided to stand outside of the law and away from people and be his own thing and stand for his own morals and his own his own ideals, and it's like this in real life would be crazy. Like this is insanity.
Batman's the one that's got the widest recognition. Also, I think has been one of the more successfully adapted characters in movies. I mean, Batman lends himself to the darker kind of movies that people seem to want now. Characters like Superman, not so successful because Superman was about an era that's gone now. A kind of decency, which I think the recent movie just lost completely. I think it just screwed with the whole concept of Superman. But Batman, I'd say the adaptations have been pretty faithful.
And at the time, it was when Superman kind of came out in Action Comics, it was it was the Great Depression, wasn't it, in America, and it was difficult, and it was pure another form of kind of escapism, wasn't it? It was a ray of hope almost, and it was kind of almost a metaphor in itself for kind of giving people a ray of hope at a time when things were so difficult,
Metaphor?
Yeah.
You just used the word metaphor? Yeah. Sorry, he's bringing out big words that I didn't know he knew.
Yeah,
Carry on.
It was a tolerable word.
I didn't really come from a comic book family. My mum liked the Adam West thing, I think that's about all I know. And I was kind of just sort of the geekier one who had leaning towards comics. And the first thing I read was Death of Spider-Man Prelude, which is an odd one to start with, considering it's the Death of Spider-Man.
I mean, I was a big Spider-Man fan when I was a kid, so it was pretty cool to end up writing a version of Spider-Man, which I did for Marvel. It's called Spider-Man Noir, where we reimagined Spider-Man as a pulp hero from the 1930s.
It was Spider-Man as well that first got me reading American comics, and it was the shapes that the artist drew in, and it was so dynamic that you were transported into this other world that other mediums just don't do. And for me, reading just a book without pictures, I can't. My imagination doesn't build that picture for me. But this it makes reading easier. It really got me connecting to reading as a kid.
I connect quite well with Peter Parker. I do have these. I feel bad for everything I do. I feel bad for things other people do. And to see that was reflected in another character and the storylines he goes through, it kind of felt like it was happening to me. So that's, I don't know what else I can say. That storyline just had such an impact on me because I could see myself in the storyline. Same for the Joker, as much as I wouldn't want to admit it. To me, the Joker is just like, I think it's summed up in it's one bad day for this one person that turned him into that, And surely he has no powers. He is just the fact that in one day something really bad happened to him and he snaps. And I love that character because it could happen to anyone. You having a really bad day.
Yeah, that cough could have sent me over the edge.
You could have done. You could have been. It almost happened.
The Joker's the man who's been given this little push.
Yeah.
And he sees Batman, who's this, this immovable object. Like, Batman is the one thing, all the criminals in this absolute hive of criminals, where criminals do great, fear. The only thing that stops them is Batman. So he looks at that and goes, the straw broke my back. I can be the straw that breaks his back.
We don't even know
prove
what it
that
is that
none of
broke
us
Joker.
are perfect. And all of us are broken like I am.
I grew up reading Justice League since the 80s, and we'll have it becomes almost kind of like a football team where you have this kind of passion. You follow people blindly with complete and utter faith.
Storytelling and comedy and the way it is in the comics. I don't know, it's just the way we are as opposed to any direct influence, I suppose.
There's a lot of us in here.
Yeah.
We're not just in comics, but in most mediums, so this and video games. I'm I do a lot of writing, I'm a creative writing student and stuff like that. The storyline is the big thing with me. And that's the power of the stories and the writers can have on you, is that you see reflections of yourself in these stories, or they have such an impact on your life. And it's not just comics, it's everything with stories.